What's up, everyone? This is Robert, and you are listening to That Infernal Noise. This is what I'm going to be calling episode 0. I am hoping to have a couple of things updated and new on the next episode. Things that I can reveal, things that I've been working on for a little bit now, and trying to get all straight. For all intents and purposes, I'm just going to leave this as kind of an introduction to me, what I am, what I do, what I plan to do with this episode or with this podcast, and things of that nature. I am not a licensed therapist, despite what I have done in the course of my life and listening to everybody and trying to help everybody with their problems. I have recently started therapy. I am a person that was largely of the opinion that you don't need therapy, that if you can figure out how to handle your own stuff, you'll be better off, etc., etc. I have realized that that was not exactly the best mindset to have, because I'm pretty far gone as far as mentally, mental health wise. That is, not mentally per se. I have all my faculties about me, just my brain does weird things at inopportune times, it would seem. I'm intending this podcast to be a chronicle, if you will, of my mental health journey. I've always been a very big proponent of mental health in general. I think that people need to take more time to consider themselves, consider everything that they do, and whether or not it's benefiting them mentally, or is what they are doing draining them. Everybody uses the full cup analogy. You can't fill somebody else's cup if yours is empty, etc. I do believe that from a mental standpoint, that is the exact same. And I think that is largely where it comes from. It's from a mental perspective, but people don't realize it. I've always been told, grew up learning, if you're a man, you need to suck it up, quit being a girl, quit being a bitch, whatever the situation may be. And as a child, I didn't really agree with it. Even as a child, I didn't agree with it. Much less so as an adult with children of my own. I do believe that there are certain times where it does benefit one to quote unquote suck it up. But the vast majority of the time, we're sucking it up in order to accommodate somebody else, as opposed to what we should be doing and setting healthy boundaries and saying, okay, look, I know you need this, but I constantly give this and I need to get this in return. And if I don't get that, then I can't continue this transaction emotionally or mentally or however you want to put it. I've been very guilty of that in the course of my life. I tend to be a giver. I've overextended myself 100 times for other people, to make family members happy, to make friends happy, to make my kids happy, spouse, whatever, work, and with everything that's gone down in the past year, I realized that it forced me to take a long, hard look at myself and realize that I'm not happy with the way that I am. I'm not happy constantly giving and giving and giving and never replenishing myself, because that's what I tend to do. I tend to focus on the giving part of it, and I'll feel fulfilled if I do this for this person, or if I accommodate this person in wanting to do whatever, or throw myself into work. I've done that a lot too, and I think everybody that has known me would probably consider me a workaholic. That's not healthy. It's been one of the biggest things that has torn down my psyche, because I feel like so much of my personality and so much of who I am has turned into being a worker, being somebody dependable in that aspect, instead of focusing inwardly and saying, okay, yes, I do focus on my job. I do put my best foot forward. I do try my hardest whenever I work. It's not something that I want to do half-assed. Never have. Maybe as a teenager I did, but that's not the same thing. I've spent so much time developing my identity around other things to the point where I don't remember who I am as a person. And I'm slowly starting to figure that out. I'm slowly starting to see that I need to put more effort into getting to know myself and understanding the things, the traumas, and all of that has shaped me and my reactions to things. And I have found CBD. I vehemently believe that it is a godsend. It has helped me more. It's helped me more than pretty much anything I've ever done. Whenever I was younger, obviously I experimented with various mind-altering substances, and they were more of a form of escapism. Whereas my using CBD, it does not alter my state of mind. I mean, it does, but in a different way. It alters my state of mind in the aspect that it helps drown out some of the noise. And that's why my podcast is called what it's called, That Infernal Noise. Because I, like I'm sure many of you, have a constant voice in the back of my head. With some people, it's ego. It's ego-driven. It's confidence-driven. It's, I can do this, and it's a positive voice. That typically means they grew up with a positive family, grew up in a positive atmosphere, etc. I can't say that I grew up in a negative atmosphere per se. For the most part, I grew up with my grandparents, but it was not the ideal situation for me because I was being raised by my grandparents, not my mom, not my dad. Dad split, mom bailed with new husband. New husband was less than great to me at times, and I never really dealt with any of it mentally. I just kind of pushed it down, pushed it away, locked it in the corner, and said, I'll deal with this later. I didn't realize that all of the experimentation with the drugs and alcohol, various other things, women, was an effort to cope with that. It was, well, maybe not cope with it, but an effort to take my mind off of it and focus my attention on something else, something that I felt that I had quote-unquote control of, which I did not. And I've realized that over the years because I have a really short fuse, especially recently, and I've taken a lot out on my wife. Not as much on my kids, luckily. I did take things out on my kids whenever they were younger because I was hyper-focused on whatever other addiction I was dealing with at the time, be it alcoholism. I think at one point I was a sex addict. Again, I've never been diagnosed. I've never been in a treatment for rehab or any type of rehab or anything like that. It's all self-diagnosed, but I think if I sit back and look at the things and behaviors that I had at the time, and having studied as much about addiction and all that as I have, I would say I was an addict. I still think I'm an addict. I don't think that if you're ever an addict, that ever leaves you. And I think that my addictions were helping me mask the noise, were helping me, okay, well, you feel great whenever you're on this, or you feel great whenever you're getting attention from this woman, or whatever the situation is. That's when you feel good. You don't feel good outside of that, so you have to keep doing that regardless of what relationship you're in or who you've made a commitment to, if you have kids, if anything. And prior to that, it was cocaine. I was constantly smoking weed. I was doing all kinds of hallucinogens, popping pills, all of that. I'm not proud of it. I'm not glorifying it because it did not get me anywhere. In fact, it helped compound all of the issues that I didn't know I was dealing with, and just made regret enter into my life for the first time. Not regret of doing it necessarily, but regret of not being present, of not addressing it, not understanding myself, even though I always prided myself on, I know myself better than anybody, I know everybody better than anybody, blah, 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 blah. And while the latter may be true, the former was never true. I still don't know myself. I'm trying to figure all that out now. That's why I made the decision to start therapy. And after the first conversation with the therapist, I realized there's probably a lot of work to be done. There's a ton of work to be done, actually. She gave me like 12 points or something like that, saying, I'm going to give you these questions. For every one you answer yes to, write a tally mark down. I think it was 12 questions. She goes through all the questions, and by the end of it, I have 8 tally marks on. She's like, okay. That's probably an indication that you have severe PTSD based on life events that have happened to you. And I do what I always do. I just sort of chuckled. I was just like, okay, that figures. I didn't ever want to admit it. I always have been of the opinion that I don't have it as bad as some people. You know, my life has not been as terrible as some people. My addictions haven't been as bad, but they were bad enough to me. I always say to Niche, whenever she and I talk about our past and our addictions and the things that we've had to deal with growing up, or the psychoses, or whatever the situation is, whenever we're talking about it, she always tries to downplay hers, and I realize I do the same thing with mine. And then I realized, you know, in the process of all that, whenever she's doing it, it's like, it's not a pissing contest. You know, you don't have to downplay your trauma. Like, your trauma is yours and yours alone. And if it affects you in a negative way, then it needs to be addressed. And who is anybody to say that you shouldn't react a certain way, or you shouldn't have whatever neuroses or psychoses or whatever that you have because of all the things you've been through. And then, in those moments, I also have to take a step back and realize you just did the same fucking thing, you hypocrite. You constantly downplay everything. Everything's cool, everything's great. Like, yeah, I might get pissed off. People know whenever I get pissed off, but I'm usually the last one to say anything about it. I've gone off a couple times, but like, say, in a professional setting, I've gone off a couple times, but that's whenever I felt that there was literally no other option. And the times that I have gone off in a professional setting, I was ready to walk out of wherever I was at that moment. Not to be unprofessional or anything like that, but just because there comes a certain point where you just can't take anymore. And if I realize that in a professional setting, the way that I make my money, the way that I feed my family, why don't I have that same boundary and that same mindset whenever it comes to my interpersonal relationships? Why don't I set correct boundaries is what it boils down to. The only people that I've set correct boundaries with are my 4 children and my wife now, Nisha. Because whenever she and I got together, I had just basically had my fill of relationships at that point. Because from the age of, I think, 15 on, I was never single. Always had a girlfriend. Always had a long term girlfriend. Always cheated on him, but that's neither here nor there. I set clear boundaries with her initially. I realized that in my life I use shades of the truth. I tell people shades of the truth, or I had previously told people shades of the truth in an effort to sugarcoat or to make myself look better or to tell them what they wanted to hear, but also, quote unquote, being honest. And I realized how much of a detriment that was, not only to the people that I told those lies to, but to myself. And not because I have to remember the lie or anything like that, but just because I had to lie. I felt like I had to lie. I didn't have to, but I chose to. Lying, for some reason, takes something out of me. Like, it legitimately does. It makes me feel like disgusted with myself. I don't like lying to people. I've never liked lying to people, but for a very long time I was very good at it. Everybody thought that I was going to end up being in sales somehow. No offense to my loan officer buddies. But in doing all of that, it's not something that I'm necessarily proud of. Well, no, I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of it at all. Because I am not the person that likes hurting people. I don't like hurting people's feelings. Which is what initially caused all of the lying. I didn't want to hurt people, so I would paint this certain picture to make them be like, oh, okay, well, it's not that bad. I would downplay my addictions. I would downplay me talking to other girls or whatever the situation was, and whatever time it was. I would definitely downplay my drug use. There was only a handful of people, and I don't even think that. It was maybe 1-2 other people that knew the extent of what I was doing. And it wasn't anybody closest to me outside of one person. And that person's not here anymore. And I think that was the bigger part of the catalyst for all this. That was the bigger part of me wanting. It was what started my mind down that path that I have got to do something. I've got to fix myself, because I've seen too much go to the wayside because we're supposed to be strong alpha dudes, and like we're not supposed to show weakness or what the fuck ever. And I don't consider myself a weak person. I feel weak at times. I absolutely feel weak at times. But I don't consider myself a weak person. I consider myself the opposite, because I'm usually the one that throws everybody on my back, says, hey, let's get this done. Let's buckle down. What do you need? How do we fix it? That's me. I genuinely care about people. I care about people that I've met once or twice. Because for some reason, whenever I get to sit down and interact with people, truly interact with people on a one-on-one basis, I develop a relationship. I don't know why, but for some reason, I just form this connection with people. And I'm not saying it's reciprocated. I'm just saying from my perspective, I formed this relationship and I genuinely care about these people, be it for better or worse. And that might be part of the problem, that I can connect to people almost instantly and not have that reciprocated. I don't know. I'm still working my way through all that. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that there's too many people that don't care in this world. And if we all had empathy for each other, We wouldn't have to have the conversation about mental health in the first place, because if we all had empathy for each other, we wouldn't be trolling each other constantly. We wouldn't be trying to tear each other down and all this shit. Like, I'm not that guy. I'll shit talk with the best of them. Do not get me wrong. I will talk shit and I'll cut up with everybody. I am that person, 100%. But I am not the malicious person. I'm not the one that sees somebody succeeding and like, oh, well, I need to humble them. I need to knock them down a peg. I'm the exact opposite. If I see somebody succeeding, I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Happy for you. Keep doing what you're doing. Whatever. And I mean it. I legitimately mean it, because I have gotten to a point in my life where I don't lie. I don't bullshit anymore, because I don't feel like I have to. 37 years old. I have 4 kids. I don't have time for fake shit in my life anymore, because all of the fake shit is what has been tearing me down. Me constantly putting forth effort into a persona or this after image of everything that I want people to perceive me as opposed to what I actually am. And you know, a while back I had gotten my favorite thing that I've gotten in the past, I don't even know how long, is Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. Not Anakin's, not the first lightsaber that he has in Star Wars, but the second one, the green one that he uses in Return of the Jedi. It's always been my favorite since before I can remember. I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, in case you didn't gather that. And something I've been wanting pretty much all of my adult life is a replica of Luke Skywalker's lightsaber from Return of the Jedi. And I finally got it. I finally fucking got it this year. And words cannot describe how happy I was about that. Still am. It's sitting on my work desk. I'm looking at it right now. That's how happy it makes me, and that's how much I am proud of it, and I want it out and displayed and like all this shit. And I made a post on Facebook, I believe. This is what I posted. I'm going to read it verbatim. That way there's no misinterpreting it. I'm not paraphrasing or whatever. This is the exact post that I wrote on March 31st whenever I got my Luke Skywalker lightsaber. I've worried about people's perception of me for a long time. I've been more concerned with being cool than being myself and being happy. This has been my year of why not, where I've decided to be selfish and not worry about others' opinions or feelings, and as such, I share these pictures. Some of my earliest memories as a kid are watching the original trilogy and wanting nothing more than to be a Jedi like Luke Skywalker. And today, with every bit of giddiness I had then, I received my first lightsaber, fashioned after his from Return of the Jedi. My brood knows how much this means to me, and all 5 of them were almost as happy as I was to see me light it up for the first time with that emerald glow. Today was a good day. There is no emotion. There is peace. There is no ignorance. There is knowledge. There is no passion. There is serenity. There is no chaos. There is harmony. There is no death. There is the Force. And I posted that. I posted that because I took a picture of me with the lightsaber in front of me, lit, everything else around me dark, and then a picture of the lightsaber hilt itself. And I just posted it with that because I've always been worried about being cool and like maintaining this dope ass persona, even though most people didn't fucking like it. But it was what I thought I needed to be. It was the hard ass. It was the one that was like, fuck you, what are you gonna do? And like, if anybody's known me for any amount of time, that's not me. Like, really known me. If anybody's spent any time around me and my family, everybody knows that that is not me. I'm the guy that is the exact opposite of that. I want everybody to have a good time. I want everybody to laugh, cut up, bullshit, and just be happy. Like, no drama, no shit talk. Well, no real shit talk, no angry shit. Just a good time. That's me. I'm a good time. Well, I want to be a good time. Sometimes I ruin the party, I'm not gonna lie. But the outpouring of people saying positive things in that moment, it surprised me because there's people I didn't expect necessarily, and it kind of put things into perspective for me. Where it's just like, yeah, you can be excited and giddy about quote unquote dumb shit. Why haven't you? Because I've been a Star Wars nerd this whole time. There is no if, buts, or maybes about it. You can ask Niche. We have had a jillion conversations about Star Wars and the mythology and the history of it and all of that shit. Not just while watching the movies. We've listened to the books. I've watched theory videos. I've listened to podcasts about it. I've done it all. Done it all because I'm a Star Wars nerd. I absolutely love everything related to Star Wars. I don't care if it's the Old Republic stuff, if it's the High Republic stuff, if it's the sequel series, which I like and I'm in the minority on that. I don't care if it's what's now called the Legends universe. I don't care. I love it all. But I was always worried about how people would perceive me. You know, I grew up in the Dallas metal scene with a lot of people. And we didn't talk about Star Wars and shit. You know, I had a couple of friends that I could talk about some of the nerdy shit with. I could talk video games. I could talk wrestling. I could talk Star Wars stuff. Well, not as much Star Wars stuff, because I was the one that was mainly into it. But you don't get to be a nerd. You don't get to enjoy the things sometimes because people criticize that. They say, "Oh, well, that's kind of childish. Why are you into that?" And da 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 da. Whatever negative shit it is. And again, I'm not that guy. Just because you like something that I don't doesn't mean I look down on you. I don't think less of people for liking things that I don't like. But that's how I look at all of this stuff too. Like, we're supposed to be, men specifically are supposed to be these strong, they're the rocks of the family and all this shit. And that should be true to a certain extent. And the same extent that the mothers and the wives and the sisters should be those rocks as well. As leaders of our families, we should be that. And I don't give a shit if you're a dude or a chick or anything in between. Doesn't bother me. I think everybody should have that responsibility. But so often, it's on the man. It's on the dude to keep everybody calm, to keep everybody together, to keep all of his shit together. You know, no matter what he's got going on. There's been so many times that I've fought with a significant other and I've had to just put on the happy face. Like, yeah, no, dude, everything's cool. Everything's fine. Yeah, man, great. Blah, 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 blah. And just sweep it under the rug. And I realized that that was doing more of a disservice to me and to whoever I was with or arguing with or whatever at the time. Because it doesn't resolve anything. And I tend to pretend that, oh, well, it's over now. Like, no, it's not over. It's not over because you didn't address it. And once I started realizing all that, the arguments and the headbutting was kind of lessened. I don't know if it was her doing or my doing or if we were just working together on it. But it has worked out so far. Now, as for my plans for this going forward, like I said, next week, hopefully, I will have an update on things I've been trying to work on behind the scenes. I would like to be able to divulge that, but there's certain things in process that I'd rather have solidified before I start saying anything. My ideas for the show, I do like this one-sided conversation because I don't know about you, or I don't know if anybody listening to this knows this about me, but I like to talk. So that's what I do. But I also intend to turn this into something bigger than that as well. I have it in my mind a couple of people so far that I would like to sit down and have a conversation with, not the least of which is my wife. There's a chance that I want to grow it even further beyond that and not just have my friend, like my close friends, but also have people that I've come to know over the years. You know, people that I find fascinating, and I know some of their story and I know some of the things that they've been through, but they're perceived in the world as this character, not as the person that they are. You know, they're real people. They're dope ass people. And I would like to show a side of these dudes and chicks that most people don't get to see. I think it's important. I think that there's not a lot of quote unquote normal representation whenever it comes to mental health and podcasting, and there's not a whole lot of, again, quote unquote alpha dudes sitting down talking about mental health and their struggles with it, or how they deal with certain things or whatever. There's not a lot of that. There are a lot of people talking about it in different ways, but I feel like I have a unique perspective on it because I'm just a guy, just a normal dude, and happens to know these weird cross sections of people, and that I think makes me have an interesting perspective, a unique perspective too, because I see the cross sections and I see how a lot of people blend whether or not they realize it. I'm like, well, I don't see myself in that kind of world. I'm like, okay, yeah, but you're just like this other guy that I know, you know, and just, you don't realize it because y'all come from two different backgrounds and things like that. And that's what I want to highlight. That's what I want to show. That's what I want everybody to realize is like, we're all going through it. We all have something that we're holding on to, whether or not you verbalize it or show it outwardly, or if you just completely downplay it and act like everything's cool and everything's gravy. Like, that's not true. Because if I personally feel that if somebody says that everything's great all the time, they're lying. And I know that because I did that. I did that for a very long time, actually. Again, not proud of it. It is what it is, though. But I want people to know that we're not alone in any of this. Somebody's got a story like yours. It's not exactly like yours, but it's something similar that you can relate to. And vice versa. Everybody can empathize with people as long as they choose to. I want to open a dialogue. I want to start a conversation. I want people to take mental health seriously because I spent so much of my time not doing that. I did for everybody else, and I told everybody else you should take it seriously, but whenever it came to me and my personal health, mentally, I was always putting it on the back burner. Until recently, where it became a real problem, and it was every other day, snapping off about something, like, and I just couldn't deal with it anymore. And I didn't want my wife to deal with it anymore. I didn't want it to spill over to the kids, etc., etc. This is going to be a journey. It's going to be a rocky one. It's going to be full of peaks and valleys and all that other cliche shit. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what I can do with this. I'm looking forward to seeing if what I think about myself is actually true. If I push myself, can I actually do this? Can I actually make a go of it? Can I actually help people? And I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't presume to be. I'm not giving advice. I'm not, well, I mean, I might give advice, but I'm not, that's not what I'm going for. I'm not I don't want people to look at me and say, "Oh, he knows what the fuck he's doing," because I got no clue, and I don't purport to, by any stretch of the imagination. But I feel like I have a voice, and I feel like I'm missing out on my calling somehow by not saying anything, by not doing anything, by not taking something that I'm so passionate about whenever it comes to mental health and saying something and doing something about it. I need to do something. I have to do something. Even if nobody listens, even if it doesn't take off, which I'm not worried about. I'm worried about that one person hearing it that needed to hear it. Because there's been several times that I've been really in a bad way, mentally, emotionally, or whatever. And I'll just get a random text or read a random comment or hear somebody say something on a podcast. Something as innocuous as that they're not even talking directly to me. And I hear it and it set something off at me. That made me feel better. I needed to hear that. I needed to hear whatever it is at the time. I believe in synchronicity. I believe that in all that shit, that you hear things at a certain time because you need to hear it at that certain time. Whether or not you planned on it, whether or not you triggered it yourself, whatever, but you needed to hear it at that time. And I try to be that. I try to be that for my friends. Whenever I'm thinking of them, I just text them real quick. Like, hey, I saw this, thought of you, blah, 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 whatever. Because there's not enough of that goes around. There really isn't. And I want to use this platform to do the same thing. I want people to know that we're not alone. You're not alone. You have trauma and issues the same way I do. The same way that anybody that I'm going to have on this podcast is going to. And it's okay. We can be broken toys and still function. We don't have to go to the island of misfit toys anymore. Because the misfits run the asylum. And that's cool. That's okay. We need to run the asylum. We need to take control. We need to put forth the effort to get better. And the only way we're going to do that is together. That's my time for today. So, you guys, be good to each other. But most importantly, be good to yourself. Later.